More on this now. We're joined from Washington by Family Research Council Vice President Charmaine Yost. Also from Washington, hello to you, David Smith, the Vice President of the Human Rights Campaign. And welcome to you too, David.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Charmaine, we're beginning with you. Family Research Council claims that the House leadership has put political correctness ahead of protecting children. Can you explain that position?
Actually, Alex, there's been so much conversation about this issue, and we want to be really clear about what we've called for. We want there to be a very thorough investigation that is very broad. That's one reason we haven't called for Speaker Hastert's resignation, because we think that would be too easy. We don't want this to be able to be swept under the rug, just so that we can move off of the conversation.
Okay, David, I heard you saying you couldn't hear Charmaine. Could you hear her now?
I could hear the tail end of it, but let me be very clear about something, Alex. Representative Foley's behavior is absolutely reprehensible and should be condemned. Whether he's gay or straight, Republican or Democrat, that behavior should never be tolerated, and we condemn it. And to the extent that he broke any laws, he should be prosecuted to the fullest extent.
Okay.
What's equally as shameful is the Republican leadership and how they've handled this, and the fact that Charmaine's trying to change the subject. They are her patrons in Congress. They knew about this and did not take appropriate action. It's equally as shameful, and they should be held accountable. This is about bad behavior and about incompetent behavior on the Republican leadership.
Yeah, go ahead and answer that, Charmaine, but then I want to take this in a different direction in a second, David, but go ahead, Charmaine.
It's kind of interesting because we agree largely with what he just said. What our real concern is that there does seem to be a question about whether or not they would have responded more quickly if there had been a young woman involved instead of a young man. I mean, that was Tony's point about the larger culture, is that with this MTV culture that we have now, where we've so over-sexualized our young people, there's almost this, towel-cracking kind of approach to young men's sexuality that, well, are we going to be called gay bashers if we call attention to the fact that this was a young man who was being abused rather than a young woman? We want to ask that question of, would there have been a faster response if there had been a young woman involved?
If the teenager is a man or a young man or a young woman, the response should have been the exact same. It is abhorrent that an adult would have that kind of communication with a teenager. It's just flat out wrong, and it should be equally strong response against that sort of behavior. And the Republican leadership dropped the ball, and they should be held accountable.
Right. David, what kind of a line are we walking here, David, though? When there are claims that are made that homosexuals are more prone to abusing children, what is your response to that?
It's outrageous. And again, Charmaine and her group are trying to change the subject. The American Journal of the American Medical Association reports that 98% of child abusers are heterosexual. It's a fact. Tony Perkins last night on Hardball was just pulling facts out of the air. They just don't exist. They're falsehoods, and they were refuted by the leading medical institutions in this country.
So, Charmaine,
98% are straight, are heterosexual.
So, Charmaine, is it the position of yours and your group that all homosexuals are potential child abusers?
Oh, heavens, let's be really, really careful about what we're saying. The research that Tony was referring to illustrates very clearly that there's a higher percentage within the homosexual community of pedophilia. Now, David, one of the things that, this is a real issue for your community. Why is it that you allow groups like the North American Man-Boy Love Association to march in gay pride parades?
We condemn that organization. Wait a minute, let me be clear. That's careful. We condemn that organization and everything that it stands for. Adults should not be having this type of communication with children or young adults or even teenagers. It's just flat out wrong. And to the extent that any laws are broken, they should be punished. So why are we talking about something that has nothing to do with the central issue, which is this behavior is wrong, it should be condemned, and the Republican leadership knew about it and didn't take any steps to stop it. That's the core issue. And this debate that's being sort of fostered by Charmaine and her group and her boss, Tony Perkins, is just bogus, and it's a red herring.
Charmaine,
it's a canard.
Charmaine, do you think there would have been a difference had it been a woman that had been targeted rather than a young man?
Alex, I absolutely do think so. I think the red flags would have gone up immediately. I think that there is a real concern that people are afraid of the gay bashing term. They're afraid that they might be sent to diversity training, that the question of tolerance becomes permissiveness.
Let me just address that.
I'm very glad, David, to hear you coming out against
The Republican, wait a minute, the Republican leadership, the Republican leadership has taken gay bashing to a new art form. And to think that if this was a Democrat, Karl Rove would be calling for his public execution. I mean, the Republican leadership has excelled at gay bashing, and to say that they would be politically correct and not want to be accused of that is ridiculous. They spent the whole summer gay bashing. Charmaine, you spent your whole summer gay bashing, and you know it. And to say that they're afraid to gay bash is just nonsense.
Okay.
I want to be really clear. I think it's troubling that this is turning into such a political issue because our point is that both
You're turning it into a political issue.
Have equal responsibility on this issue.
All right, guys, I'm going to have to let that be the last word. Boy, is this a hot button issue or what, huh?
Yeah.
Charmaine Yost, David Smith, I want to thank you both for weighing in.